Oy, I don't even see us, so that's not good. Oh, wait. So we have the 11, which is good as far as us being able to talk and stuff, you know. But we're gonna have to.
All right, we got a couple people in here, so we're just getting set up. Jen, draft. Where are you drafting from, Jen?
We are in the 11. This is a we, TJ. This is a we, right?
Yeah. Well, Jen, for those that are jumping in, Jen is drafting her first Best Ball Mania draft. I'm going to be along for the ride. Best Ball Mania just launched yesterday. For those that don't know, it is this year. It is a 155,000 entrant tournament. $25 entry, $150 entry max, $3.5 million in prizes, $1 million to first. So basically, we draft like we would any best ball team, and then you go through different rounds. So the way it's set up this year is you go through a 12-man round, just like any other regular league. And then it jumps up to in week 14, I believe, it goes to 18-person groups. The week after that, another 18-person group. Whoever comes out of there, the final 160 people will compete in week 16 or 17. Week 17. Remember, we have 18 weeks this year. High score of that 160-person group wins $1 million. So we started putting out some content on the site today. I released a piece on Underdog roster construction strategy, and if you're new to best ball, you should definitely be reading those, because everything is really based around roster construction in terms of how many players you have at each position, and of course stacking, which we'll be getting into a lot today and in our future streams. But Jen, you are
2 picks away.
2 picks away. And the reason you're drafting and not me is because you've been doing drafts and I haven't been. So I didn't want my first one to be live. But in this area, what have you been looking at typically?
Usually at the 111, I'm going to take either Adams, or I was hoping that Kelsey actually fell here because he usually doesn't, but he just went at 1-9. I usually go wide receiver, kind of depending. I know people are kind of scared of Adams, I would think, because of Rodgers. But we are next, and Elliott and Akers do not appeal to me. So I think it's either going to be Adams. I guess we could possibly go Eckler here. I mean, it is half PPR underdog versus full PPR. So, yeah, I don't know. Oh, he took Elliott, or he or she, I guess. So we are up. So how do you feel about Adams? Are you scared of Adams? I'm not an Akers person, so that's definitely not.
I'm of the belief that top tier wide receivers like Adams typically. I'm yes on Adams if you're asking for me.
Yeah, no,
I'm of the belief that guys like Adams are going to get theirs no matter what. They're going to see 160 targets. Obviously, he's not going to be an offense that's going to score 50 touchdowns if Rodgers isn't there. But we've seen guys like DeAndre Hopkins, like Odell Beckham, ball without top end quarterbacks, and it's because volume drives fantasy numbers. Devontae Adams is going to be the number one near the top of the league in targets no matter what.
Agreed. Well, we are back on the clock. My pick here would either be Eckler or Diggs, depending if we want to kind of go for a modified zero RB-ish approach and just take the 2 best receivers in the game off the bat, or go with Eckler. I'm going to mix it up here, and I'm going to go with Diggs, because why not?
Yeah, we Underdog's Hayden Winks has written a lot about before he was with Underdog, he was writing for NBC Edge, formerly known as RotoWorld. He's done a lot of work on how successful you can be in best ball, even with a zero running back approach or a modified zero running back approach. A lot of people think it might be hard because you aren't able to work the waiver wire. There are no trades, which concept like zero running back is very reliant on. But he has shown data that it can be viable. Obviously, you're not like completely punting the position, but it definitely can work. another thing that I think we should note, especially when you are at these turns and that you're making these weird decisions where you're going to be stuck in runs or um, can get in trouble with runs at other positions, is if you're playing these tournaments for the most part, it's not like best ball cash games, if you will, where like if you're just playing a couple, it's not a big deal. Most of us, especially people like you and I, Jen, we're playing a ton of these leagues. So you're going to be rounding out your portfolio. So we're not necessarily trying to draft the perfect team like you might in redraft. If you're drafting 10, 15, 20, up to 150 teams, these things are these ebb and flows of the drafts are going to kind of take care of themselves. So you're naturally going to come away with a Zeke instead of a Devontae, an Akers instead of a Diggs, a running back, wide receiver start, running back start. These things are going to take care of themselves. Obviously, we're going to have players that we like a little bit more, but in these early rounds, I mean, people are going to take these players where they're supposed to be drafted. So those things do take care of themselves if you are drafting a lot. So people that are new to best ball, you know, they might be in that mindset where you're just constantly trying to draft the best players. Obviously, trying to draft the best players, but when you're dealing with portfolio, it's way different.
Yeah, and you also, in these big GPP type tournaments, you definitely want kind of a variance, and you also want, you want to go for upside, and you want to go for not just kind of like you said, the best players, but necessarily you kind of want players that can get you big swings one week or the next, because all the good players kind of balance out, and you want to try to grab some players that might have a random 3 touchdown week, that'll give you that edge over the other guys and gals in the field. Let's see what I shared this part of the screen, so at least you guys can see what's going on. Chris, sorry that you misunderstood the TJ's tweet, but glad you're here. We did have a minor difficulty, so we are a little late anyway, but we're here. We're rolling.
We would have been waiting for the draft to fill anyway. So we said around 5-ish on the original tweet, but
we're a little late. Not too bad.
We're here, and I mean these fast drafts, especially on Underdog, they go pretty quick. I think last year we were knocking them out in like 40 minutes or something like that. So we're going to be trying to do as many of these as possible. All of our best ball guys, me, you, Chris Allen, Sal.
I was hoping old Harris fell to us in a little bit.
What spot is that running back?
He just went 3. Well, he just went 3-5, and I can't count how many have gone, but a lot.
Yesterday in our 4-for-4 mock, I took I believe it's Najee, not Najee. Is that right? I don't know.
That's why I just said Harris.
It's May. We'll figure it out. I took him as RB20. It looks like he went around RB20 right there. I think that's a fair valuation for him. He's going to potentially fall into like a 20 touch role in Pittsburgh with James Conner out of there. So, I mean, volume is king there.
There's, we're coming up here in a couple picks, and I just, I think we're going to have to continue and go on the 0 RB train, because there's nobody that I like there. I do, I do like Carson, so we may take him on the comeback if he's there, but I think we should grab another wide receiver here. I think we should grab either Terry or Amari. A-Rob was in the mix, but he's gone. How do you feel about Julio this year?
I mean, we do see that he's kind of at that age where those receivers typically start to decline. And it is, you want to be on, I'd rather like guess a year early than when his complete decline is going to come, than the other way around. I mean, if you're stuck with him relatively early, that's a lot of draft capital. Obviously, he's one of the best wide receivers ever, but it's a deep position where I don't think you need to take the kind of risk where Calvin is that wide receiver 1.
Yeah, no, totally.
I think falling.
No, go ahead. I'm sorry. I'm gonna take Amari there, so we are good there for a bit.
If Julio's getting like down to that 4 or 5 turn, I think it's worth it. But third round,
No.
early
I was
fourth,
just
I'm still a
curious. I
little
wasn't
nervous.
thinking of taking him, to be honest. I was just wanting to get your thoughts on him.
One thing that I like the Amari pick. One thing that we talked a lot about last year in house at 4 for 4, in content and in these drafts is like, again, this is a tournament format. So it's similar to a GPP. Again, back to the point of not trying to necessarily draft the best players. A lot of people might not like an Amari, but we're getting a piece of an offense that we think can be one of the best offenses in the league with that could still have a really bad defense. So like an Amari is a player that I'm gonna be targeting a lot because I'm getting a piece of a Dallas passing game where I'm probably not going to be able to have a lot of deck unless I force it late in the year, because he is going to be going so early in that like 4th, 5th round range where I'm usually uncomfortable taking quarterbacks.
I picked Carson while you were talking about Amari, and I know you're not a huge fan, but in this particular instance, I wanted to at least have a starting running back on our team.
Yeah, and
I don't.
Even in the best ball format, like we were talking about with Hayden's data, I think a lot of people, you mentioned going wide receiver again, starting with the third wide receiver. A lot of people get really nervous, and I mean, you see it from seasoned veterans in fantasy that I'm not going to be able to fill out this roster with starters at this position. But on the flip side of it, you're going to potentially be dominating at another position, in this case wide receiver, sometimes tight end when we get that early round tight end, at a position where you have to start 3 players. And again, it's best ball, so we don't have to pick and choose when these players do well. So if we wait until the 6th to the 10th round and get a lot of these iffy running backs and committees, you're still set up to where you can do really well. Another thing I wanted to talk about, and we're doing this, I don't even think it's been 24 hours since this tournament launched. It's really interesting because unlike traditional best ball leagues or cash game best ball leagues where you're just playing against the other 12 people in your league and you all draft at the same time, you're going to, if let's assume this league takes, I mean, like I said, there's 155,000 plus entries. If it takes till August to fill, there's going to be some people drafting now playing against some people that don't draft until close to the season. When you have a lot more information, we have seen numbers from other platforms where typically later in draft season, those teams score more points. But there is also the argument that right now we can get a lot of value where we're not sure where those players are going to land. If you are confident that you can anticipate how ADP is going to move, especially right after the NFL draft, you might be able to get some value that you won't be able to get later in the season. So it's a double-edged sword. And we're going to have some content coming out on it at 4 for 4, looking at those numbers from last year's Best Ball Mania, when teams drafted and how they fared relative to teams that drafted at different points throughout the offseason. So that's a really interesting strategy thing to think of as well. If you are like really keen on the fact that you have this huge, if you think you have this huge edge later in the season and you plan on drafting 150 teams, you might try to draft 100 of them in August and spread out the other 50 now. Some people might try to spread it out evenly. It's why games like this are super intriguing, because there's so many layers of strategy. It's not just draft this team and hope it's the best. We're talking about stacking. We're talking about when to draft. We're talking about how to build these portfolios.
Yep. And I love myself a stack. So we'll get there. I mean, I actually was just, while you were talking, I kind of clicked over to kind of see where we started, and we don't really have a great stacking situation yet, so we're going to have to go for one of the inexpensive ones later. Because I'm sorry, what were you going to say?
Do you have offenses that I mean, again, I know it's only May 2nd. It's not May 2nd, it's May 3rd. Do you have offenses that you're already thinking about targeting? I mean, whether it's price sensitive or not?
Yeah, I think there's some really good inexpensive stacks out there. I think Jacksonville is a great way to get a bunch of guys, pretty cheap. Trevor Lawrence is, I mean, I'm sure he's wasn't a surprise where he was going, so I don't think his ADP is going to move that much. And then you've got, Laviska is super cheap, and he's a guy that, is going to get you extra points running as well. So I kind of like him better than Chark at his ADP in that. And then Marvin Jones, cheap too, really. I like it's interesting because I like Indy as a stack, as a very, very cheap stack. Wentz scares me a little bit, but all those pieces are there, and they're pretty cheap as well. I do like the Cowboys as a stack. You do have to pay up a little bit for them, but I do like to do it if I can. I mean, Dak's already gone in the 5th in this one, so we're actually almost up here. Let's pay attention. Okay.
So I know how you draft because we draft a lot every offseason. Typically by now you like to have a tight end and you don't. So what at this turn, I think Mark Andrews already went off the board. The top 4 guys went off the board already.
No, he's actually sitting there.
Interesting. That's
I'm definitely a top tier or wait till like the 10th, 11th round is usually my thing.
Even though Andrews is falling like to this turn, do you still consider him top tier?
I don't know. That's why I'm kind of torn. I was kind of hoping he was gone, but I'm thinking maybe because of where we are right now, maybe we should actually take him.
Mm-hmm.
And like you're saying, diversifying. I actually have not taken Mark Andrews this entire season. Now this is the first, Mania that I've done, but I've done about 10 of just their regular Underdog drafts.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, let's see here. We can take Andrews. We can take. There's still some really good. I mean, Ayuk I like, but I'm thinking. All right, let's just take Andrews so that I can think about the next pick later. I keep forgetting. For a brief moment, I keep thinking we're actually on the turn, but we're not. So I have a second to think about the next pick.
Obviously, a wrench in Ravens' offense with Rashad Bateman there now, but I think that probably hurts Hollywood more. Like those tight ends like Andrews, like the offense is just kind of goes through him. You're back on the clock here.
I like Hunt is kind of intriguing, but part of me really kind of wants to take Ayuk and see what happens with him and Lance. Let's do that. And we're just going to kind of, like you said, grab a running back a little bit later and hope that they're emerge out of committee or can make it happen.
Yeah. So you brought up, or we touched on a couple of things quickly that I think I'd like to expand on. One, obviously, just getting that early-ish tight end. When you get a Mark Andrews, I think he's probably the cutoff where you can be really comfortable just getting 2. And I'll talk a little bit more about the data that says you typically want to stay in that 2 to 3 tight end range. But you just do get, especially in best ball, where we're looking for these stacks. We're looking to build around teams, and then we are really focused on roster construction, eliminating one of those decisions later in the draft when you think you could comfortably just go with 2 tight ends because you have a top tier one, gives you a lot of flexibility at the other positions. If you miss out on quarterback run, you could go with 3. If you feel weak at running back or wide receiver, you can go on the high end 6 or 7 running backs, 8 or 9 wide receivers if you need to with those 2 tight ends. And those like that Travis Kelce, I would still say through Mark Andrews, you're comfortable enough doing that.
Yeah, and data showed. I did a piece on roster construction and win rates earlier this season, and data showed that basically that middle section of tight ends is just not as profitable. A lot. I don't remember the exact numbers, so I don't have them in front of me. But the win rates last year in best ball were, definitely more fruitful for the top guys, and then starting with like the back end, rounds 10. I think it was rounds 10 through 14 were the second most profitable after Kelce. So. A lot of people want to go for those Higbee and, whoever, that middle tier. And I feel like you get more value out of the other positions at that point.
Yeah. And that goes back, that data is supported. If we look at like some of going back to our old studies on 4 for 4, it's been consistent, and other people like Sean Siegel at Rotoviz have done similar work that shows that middle tight end dead zone, just really does. We do see win rates plummet, and I think it's a lot of it might be with a false sense of security that you have a decent name, so you think you could go with 2 tight ends, or you think if you go with 3, the other 2 can be weaker. Whereas if you miss out on those guys, you're going to be more inclined to get 3 they might feel like low end guys, but 3 upside guys. And again, it's best ball. We're not choosing the week. So having 3 like guys in the 12 to 16 range might be a lot better than having a guy in the 7 to 10 range and another guy in the 12 to 16 range at the tight end position.
But I was just looking at running back. It's kind of ugly. I probably should have taken one in that last pick, but well.
It's always going to feel ugly, especially this early in the season. But in best ball, like we can really, I don't want to say blindly, but you can throw darts at these running back committees, take the cheaper guy, and trust that enough of them are going to hit that you're going to be profitable if you're taking the time to evaluate backfield situations. I mean, things like the Broncos with a new rookie. I'm actually sure Javonte already went, but just looking for some of those muddy situations.
Yeah.
The Cardinals. I think we'll probably see Connor and Chase Edmonds ADPs converge a little bit on each other and just taking stabs at those on the side that you like. Usually the cheaper side. A lot of times those kind of gambles pay off. And people have a lot of discomfort doing that, especially when they don't have control over it. But when you do hit on those, it's just you gain such a huge advantage.
This is my least favorite part of the draft right now. Like just who's here and the situation, and we're up next. And I don't like any of the running backs that are here. I mean, I feel like you said, like a Connor, those guys, we can get them later. I mean, it's still early for that. And then I actually had Hurts bookmarked, and he just went. So I don't feel comfortable taking Stafford. I mean Rodgers. I mean Stafford. I'm not. I feel like we can wait for that as well. So once again, it's like I want to take a wide receiver. Oh God, we're up. Okay. How are you feeling here? You want to give me any input?
I think we're still kind of at that point where we don't need to start building around teams, but we can if we want to.
I've got 5 seconds. All right, I'm taking Samuel because I can. Oh no, I may not. Okay.
Did we get it in?
I don't know. We got Mostert. Okay. Well, in a continuation from last night's debacle, we now have Mostert, which is
last night in our 4-for-4 mock. Mostert was at the top of the timing out queue, and we kept having to replace him. I mean, I'm
up again though, so I guess I'm gonna take Samuel because I do. Back to quickly on the discussion we're talking about stacking and building around. I do like Washington as a stack as well because you can get Fitzpatrick super cheap, and there's a bunch of different weapons there, McKissick and Samuel. So I just grabbed him for now.
Yeah, I mean, Mostert does fit into that discussion that we're having. I mean, obviously that might be a touch early for him. I think you're probably be able to get him closer to the double-digit rounds now. But now that they drafted Trey Sermon, I mean, we've seen Shanahan go with committees before, and guys like Mostert actually went out in those situations. So he is going to have boom weeks, and I mean, obviously I don't expect Trey Sermon just to go in there and get like a 70% touch share. So I think people are probably going to undervalue a player like Mostert. But now that we are getting into the 8th round without a quarterback, I think we have already kind of crossed the threshold of where we're probably going to be looking at a 3 quarterback build in this draft. The suggestion in the article that I dropped today is 2 to 3. I think it's really important to especially in redraft leagues, but I think upside wise in best ball, those top 8 guys are just so much better than the field in turn because they have the combination of potent offenses, the ability to run, and being very efficient passers. That it's going to be really hard for guys like Matthew Stafford and Matt Ryan to catch them. And we saw it last year. We saw the top 8 players like breaking 21, 22 per week on their upside weeks, 30, 35. Guys that aren't running just aren't getting that. So quarterback scoring isn't as linear as it's been in the past. But again, we've talked about teams that we like, offenses we like. When I'm in a situation like you all right now, I have loaded up on receivers. And now when I do start targeting quarterbacks and end up in these coin flip situations, I'll often look to my receivers and try to pair them with their quarterbacks as I get down the stretch. So
Yeah.
I don't think we need to go into draft saying I'm going to target this offense no matter what. One that just kind of pigeonholes you in your draft. And you might end up forcing picks and missing out on value, just getting tunnel vision. And that's how you get really out of whack with your portfolio. We fall in love with these guys and keep drafting them over and over. When you're drafting tens, if not like 100+ teams, those things again are going to take care of themselves, and you still need to get out of the first round. You still need to win your 12-team league to have a chance at the big prize, and to do that, you need to be able to recognize value.
Yeah. All right, so we're at about 5 picks or so. So let's begin to address quarterback. Trevor Lawrence is someone that I think, I mean, even though we don't have any of his pieces, I do like that he's. I know you're not a Tannehill fan. Yeah, it's getting kind of slim, TJ. We're gonna have to take.
I mean, guys like Tua are suddenly upside situations. Justin Fields upside situation, although he might not be starter week 1. Trevor Lawrence, plenty of running ability, and a guy that I'm targeting in a ton of drafts. There's data that shows that this is kind of the range where you want to start loading up on quarterbacks. People that wait too long on quarterbacks, even if you have 3, there is kind of a dip if you get outside like that quarterback 17 and 18 range.
Yep, I have a feeling the guy in front of us is going to grab Lawrence. He doesn't have one yet either, so no.
But I like Tua as an upside play here. I mean, Cousins is still tied to Justin Jefferson, who is in the running for wide receiver 1. You mentioned players like Trevor Lawrence and not having a piece of their offense. I think it's really important to be cognizant of players like him, like a Marvin Jones, LaVisca are still going to be available even when you get Trevor at the 9th, 10th round.
Yeah, LaVisca did go though. I saw that. I don't. Okay. Yeah, I didn't notice. I do know the guy in between us, Flavorize This, already has 2, so chances are he's not taking a quarterback, which is good news for us. But let's see. All right, he took Brady, so I'm going to take Trevor because we can definitely work with that. Do you think that I should grab a second one here?
I probably double up on quarterbacks here. Again, I think it's really important to try to get 2 in this range. I mean, again, we're not necessarily forcing any stacks at this point, so I don't think you could go wrong.
Yeah, we don't have. We really can't. I mean, other than Trey Lance, which we're not forcing that, and Fitzpatrick, and we're not forcing that right now either. So
I don't mind the Trey Lance. It's a little
really
bit early,
right now.
I don't mind it.
You don't mind rolling with 2 rookies?
No.
I mean, I guess it is a tournament, right?
Yeah.
You know what? Let's just do it because we're doing it. All right.
Yeah, I mean, we're at a point where I don't think you're necessarily forcing a stack. Like, you're taking him ahead of ADP, but by the time it gets back to you, it's going to be pretty much at his ADP.
Oh, and I forgot we have Mostert too, so we actually have 3 pieces of them right now. All right. I don't hate that.
And it takes you a little bit pressure off you, even though you only have, I believe it's 2 running backs at this point.
Right.
We're just not going to be like scrambling for a position that offers the upside when we're trying to stack.
Listen, it's a tournament though, so if either of these 2 rookies, like, I think it's kind of an interesting call. You know what I mean? Like, just to go with 2 rookie running backs, and then we can grab Fitzpatrick later if we want. I'm sorry, I cut you off. Go ahead.
No, by all means. I was just going to say, kind of going back to that, to the staying on the stacking conversation, and talking about portfolios. One thing that I really tried to kind of get out into the ether last year, and we definitely talked about it internally at 4-4, and it didn't catch on a ton industry wide, but I do think it's a really interesting concept. People track their player shares. I think it's really interesting to track your team shares. So keeping track of all your drafts and seeing how much of an offense makes up your overall portfolio. And again, we don't want to be forcing these picks, especially this early. But if you are going to be drafting a lot of teams, when we get to August, that's when we can look at those shares and say, okay, now that I'm 100 drafts in and I have 20 left, now I can start looking at these things and I might pass up value a little bit. The natural draft variance is going to take care of itself over that many drafts. And I might want to be way overweight on the Dolphins. So for my final 20 drafts, I might take a couple Dolphins around ahead of ADP just to make sure I have exposure to them. Because value isn't as it's very important, but it isn't the single overriding factor like it might be in a cash game. We still want to build that built-in upside.
So on a separate note here, I just earlier today, because I knew we were doing this, I kind of looked at my teams from last year. I looked at my Mania, my Best Ball Mania 1 teams from last year, and kind of looked at the ones that actually won and advanced, to see just what stacks I had, to see if they were cheap stacks, expensive stacks, how they panned out. So I had basically had 2 teams that went pretty far in the Mania. One had Mahomes Hill, which I thought was interesting because a lot of people don't want to pay up for that. They don't want to pay up for a high-end stack, but I did win with that. And then I had another one that actually had a double stack that went through. I had Tannehill and A.J. Brown, and then I had Darnold and Crowder on that same kind of team, and that went through. I thought that was kind of an interesting, that was a super cheap stack last year. And once again, Darnold is going to be pretty cheap stack this year as well, I would think. People are super scared of him.
Yeah, and when Jin says goes through, remember this is a tournament that's set up by round. So once we get to week 14, a next round week 15, and another round week 16, and then a final round week 17. So it kind of resets each of those rounds, and you want to obviously make it as deep as possible. Yeah, I mean that Mahomes point is really interesting. If you have players that's why I said like value doesn't dominate in these leagues like it does in a cash game setting or a 50-50 or something like that. Even though I don't want to take a quarterback in the second, third, fourth round, I'm going to do it sometimes because you want exposure to those guys. And regardless of value or how good your draft or how well you evaluate, if an offense goes nuclear, the rosters that have pieces to those offenses are the ones that are going to win. It's like having a top 3 pick. In those redraft leagues where the running back that just laps the field, a lot of teams are going to suck the rest, especially in like more casual leagues. A lot of teams might suck everywhere else, but if you hit the lottery, it's going to be hard for the rest of the field to catch up on that. So you still want to give yourself a chance to hit on those pieces that win it all. So you're going to have to get out of your comfort zone sometimes and take a quarterback in the 3rd round. And yeah, the Tyreek Patrick Mahomes, it's probably gonna be similar price this year. You're probably gonna have to spend your 1st and your 3rd round pick and get lucky. I guess the holy grail is the Kelsey Tyreek Mahomes start. I've seen a couple people post that start already. So you would almost never do that in a redraft league, but it's viable in a big tournament like this.
Yep. So I'm looking at a running back here. We kind of have to. And because Dad has also shown that super, super late running backs don't pan out either. So we kind of have to grab one in these mid to late rounds. So I guess I'm looking at Hines right here. Not into David Johnson.
Yeah. I like McKissick. I like McKissick as a player that's going to give you standalone value.
Is it too early for him? That was kind of my only thought.
No, I mean, I think with just 2 running backs, you still do want some standalone value.
Yeah.
Again,
and if we I was going to say if we do go with Fitzpatrick, then and we have Samuel, so I'm going to do that. And go ahead, keep talking. Oh, I guess we're up again.
And at this point of the draft, again, I don't think you have to go with the standalone value. Again, we're in a tournament setting. It's the rosters are going to optimize on their own. You don't have to pick who is hitting on a specific week. So even when I do have 2 running backs in these situations, I'm not shy of just taking pure handcuffs like Alexander Madison in these spots. Because again, those are lottery tickets that if they hit, you're going to win. I like the Gerald Everett pairing with the Mark Andrews. I believe that gives us 2 Seahawks. So we're getting, again, stacking. We don't have Russell Wilson, but we have multiple pieces of a really good offense.
I'm glad you like the pick. Well, I just figured it was getting kind of late in the tight end, so I just wanted to grab our second one just so we were good to go. Because it's funny, I've been in, not in Mania, of course, but in the regular Underdog leagues, I've been taking a lot of Ebron, and then of course they just drafted a tight end. So, which I don't know how much that's really going to affect him, but I do like Ebron as kind of a late guy. He keeps showing up in win rate percentage, in the top 12 every year, even though everybody hates him. And he's like a 15th rounder, but he's still somehow, if he has those couple weeks where he has 3 touchdowns, then he.
Yeah, the Steelers drafted the tight end out of Penn State,
Freiermuth, yeah.
So I mean, when you spend second round draft capital on the tight end, that's scary for
yeah.
But we've seen first round tight ends take a couple years to catch on. Ebron being one of them. So
yeah, no, totally.
It's tight end's always going to be a crapshoot. The one thing I forgot to mention, we were talking about drafting now compared to drafting in August in terms of scores. We don't have the schedule out yet. So we can't manage bye weeks yet. So, I think sometimes early people will automatically take 3 quarterbacks, 3 tight ends because they're scared of having 2 in the same bye. And that's the risk you take. I mean, if you are super worried about it, there's only a 2-week window right here where we're going to have to take that risk. I think for roster construction purposes, especially like a situation you're in now where you want a couple more running backs just because you're weak at the position, fine sticking with 2 tight ends with Mark Andrews. But I get why somebody would want to go 3 because of the fear of bye week. So
yeah, I would go 3 if we would have had to go 3 from that kind of, low end tier. But being as though we did get Andrews, I feel good with both of those guys because they're both, I mean, Everett's, in a good spot. If it was last year and Hollister was still there and Olsen, then I'd be a little more concerned. But I feel like Everett's in a good spot now in Seattle. And I think he'll be fine with Andrews. So I think, like you said, I think we're going to focus on running back here on this next turn.
Yep. And as a reminder to those that are new to Underdog, no kickers, no defense. So 18 rounds, you start 1 quarterback, 2 running backs, 3 wide receivers, 1 tight end, and a flex position, running back, wide receiver, tight end, flex. So for the most part, like standard setup, standard scoring with half PPR. I guess not standard scoring, but normal scoring with half PPR settings. No kicker, no defense. So 18 rounds.
Okay, I just set up a little queue here, so now I can come back so people can see what's going on there. I just had something that hit my brain while you were talking, and now I don't remember. Oh yeah, so I set up with, I don't know if you can see, I guess I switched the screen, but so I've got, as far as later, I've got Fitzpatrick and I've got Tua in there just kind of in case, because I think we should probably grab a 3rd quarterback just because we're going with 2 rookies. And,
I not just that, but if I don't, I'm typically trying to grab 3 quarterbacks if I don't get one of those top 8 guys. One article that I think really flew under the radar last year, again, going back to the great best ball mind, Sean Siegel, discussed the quarterback hack of getting 3 quarterbacks in like the round 7 through 12 range. And I believe that was FFPC scoring, so it's a little bit different. But the idea just being that people typically, if they draft a quarterback around 7 or 8, will want to wait till like the last round to get their 3rd quarterback. And there's data that shows getting 3 quarterbacks in those middle rounds, even though it might seem like you're spending a ton of draft capital on them, it offers you a ton of upside because you're getting 3 quarterbacks that can really, really go off. And if you're stacking them, it's just that much more upside. So I'm more than okay with your 3 quarterback approach, no matter when you took them at this point.
All right. Well, I am going to probably go. I'm thinking of taking Madison on this one, and then on the way back, maybe taking. Do you think that Fitzpatrick or Tua will make it back to us. I guess we have to kind of see what everybody has on the board.
Yeah, I mean, you're only going to have. I mean, I don't all the way back into round 15 and 16. I would say that it's not super likely, just because
All right.
people are typically going to draft based on the rankings,
Mhm.
even if we don't agree with those rankings. So I would say and both of those offenses are probably hyped offenses. I would guess that both of them don't make it back. I think with
Well, Tua just went, so you know what?
yeah,
I'm just going to grab Fitzpatrick just so we can secure that pretty
I
little
like
stack.
that. I like that.
And he was going to, and flavorize this was obviously he took Watson, so he was thinking quarterback too. So
that gives us a trio of Fitz.
McKissick, Samuel.
No, for quarterback.
Yes, I'm sorry. Yes, we have Lawrence, Lance, and Fitzpatrick.
Yeah,
We've got the old and the new.
I like it.
Do we want? I'm just taking a gander at receiver to see if there's anyone there that I'm dying for, but I'm not. So I'm going to take Madison there, and then we can get some more wideout because we only have 5 wideouts. So
players like Madison are always really exciting best ball picks for me. I mean, even though he is just a pure handcuff, it's just an offense where we know if he slides in, he's going to ball. And even if he only does it, 2 or 3 weeks for you, like Latavius Murray, we've seen with high win rate. Those roles are great.
Yeah, and Madison has been on that win rate list as well.
Yeah.
I mean, Cook he's been healthy lately, but listen, we all know every running back has the potential of getting hurt. Well, really everybody, but I didn't realize Wentz was still there. I don't know how. Not that it's really hard for me to pull the trigger on Wentz. I think because I had him in a lot of spots last year, including Scott Fishbowl and everything else. And so the Eagles in general are a team I just haven't found myself drafting at all. I'll take Goddard here and there when it arises, but for the most part, I'm really I've been kind of staying away from that Eagles. I know we got into it the other day. You were trying to talk me into drafting Miles Sanders again, and I'm not sure that I'm not sure my PTSD will allow me to click that button for him this season.
And I mean, with what we saw from Jalen Hurts, and now that they've added Devontae Smith, it's going to be really tough for me to avoid that offense.
Actually, you know what? Hurts, I would absolutely take Hurts. In fact, I wanted to take him here. He was queued up, and someone took him before us. So I do like Hurts, but I kind of like him standalone. I know that's for best ball, it's not ideal, or naked, I should say, is the proper term. But I do, I like his rushing ability, and I think he almost won me a championship in redraft last year. I ended up losing in the final game because of Derrick Henry, but Hurts, was a waiver wire ad who just completely. I rode him all the way to the end. He was great at the last however many games.
Yeah, I guess.
Reynolds just went. He's one of my favorite late guys.
Yeah, people that are watching this, obviously we don't have a ton of live drafts under our belt. Obviously, Best Ball does offer the slow draft option, which I think for the majority of the time, at least Jen will be doing. I love the live draft format because I think it does make users make some mistakes. But for those of you that are new or just really want to meticulously manage those player shares or have the time to think about it, those slow drafts obviously let you do that a lot more. And I think that the majority of people in these type of leagues are doing the slow drafts, especially a lot of the sharp drafters that do not just the tournament, but just do hundreds, if not thousands of leagues overall, because you can just kind of set your parameters for players that you like and put in your own rankings, and just makes it really easy to do a lot of drafts. Obviously, if you don't have to be there, but for streaming purposes, that would not be fun for you guys. It would just be a podcast with nothing to look at.
No. Who do you like in this range, wide receiver wise? We need to kind of grab. All my late round guys have been snagged in the last round or so. Do you like any of
Isn't
these
at the top of the
rookies?
list. Can you scroll down a little bit?
Yeah,
As far as rookies go, I like Elijah Moore. I think he
I think
is
I don't know if is he gone?
an interesting target.
Yeah, he's gone.
I think Traquan Smith was somewhat of a
Yep.
winner without the Saints doing much there in the draft.
Yeah, I've been taking him. Yeah, I mean,
I like the starred Tariq Cohen a lot. By the
okay.
way,
Well, good. Where are we on? Let's see. We've got 4 running backs. We could take Cohen as our 5th. And then that's kind of usually where I end. Sometimes I'll go for a 6th depending on what's happening. I would like to.
I think when I do get really late in the draft here, this is kind of when I am looking at these, like a lot of players that I don't necessarily like.
Right.
I will start looking at either just offense, even if I don't have a piece of the offense, just offenses I like in general. So like an Emmanuel Sanders is a player that I'll just take a stab at because that Bills offense is great. Or teams that I have already started stacking and flipping coins with those guys.
Marvin Jones, I assume, is long gone, right? Of course, I can't. Yeah. Okay. I was just thinking about Jacksonville and what because we don't have we don't have any.
I don't see what's available for the Giants in general there. I think a lot of people are obviously we're already seeing them drop with Sterling Shepard, Darius Slayton is still there.
Yep.
We don't know what Daniel Jones is, and there's a ton of mouths to feed, but all those guys are pretty talented and have had big blow up spots in their own right. So I think they are being undervalued quite a bit. I think the Giants are interesting receiver.
Yeah, and I actually have not
on.
taken. Yeah, and I haven't taken them a lot.
And I don't think Tony is going to find the field much in his first year, even though they did spend high draft capital on him.
Do you like Shepard or Slayton?
I like Slayton because he is a downfield guy. I mean, Shepard's a great slot receiver. But I'm still kind of a sucker for Darius Slayton. I still think he's a pretty good wide receiver.
All right, so for our just so we're so we've got 3 quarterbacks, we've got 5 running backs, 6 wide receivers, and 2 tight ends, and we have 2 more spots. So I definitely like to at least go. I definitely like to go 7 wide out, and then that next spot, I would assume we could either take another and go 8, or we can go 6 running backs because ours are kind of not great. Actually, you know what? They're not awful though. I mean, we have some good. If this was full PPR, we'd be.
It's a very best ball looking team, and I think people might look at that like you said. If it is full PPR, I mean, the fact of the matter is, even though they're only getting half point per reception, those running backs are players that are going to stay involved in the offense and keep accruing you points because they do catch the ball so well. It might not be a full point. They're very unlikely to be completely phased out of the game,
right?
Which is obviously important.
Greg Smith is giving you some crap over here in the comments. he's just asking if you're still a Bills fan.
Yeah, I mean, born and raised all 35 years, haven't stopped.
He's a proud member of Bills Mafia since birth.
I mean, you're talking about wanting 7 wide receivers. In the article that we dropped on 4 for 4 today looks at the best ball Mania 1 win rates, roster construction, positional allocation. What we found is that you generally want 2 to 3 quarterbacks, 5 to 6 running backs, 7 to 8 wide receivers, sometimes even 9, and then 2 to 3 tight ends. Obviously, that's going to be very dependent on stacking, on how much draft capital you spent on a position. But that's kind of the tight range you want to be in. If you go on the site and look at the article, you'll see very very specific breakdown of how winning teams built around those ranges. But if you're getting outside of those ranges, I think you're going to get into a lot of trouble. You're just going to either limit your floor or limit your upside at one of the positions, and just really not be able to compete with people that are really adhering to these roster construction guidelines. I would argue that it's the most important thing in best ball is understanding proper roster construction.
Can we discuss the fact that Zach Ertz is now like a late 16th rounder?
Yeah, I mean, people are still thinking that he's not even somehow not going to be on the team.
I know. And listen, I haven't been drafting him either, but it's just crazy. Like if Zach Ertz is, I mean, it's crazy. I mean, he's at 16-10 here in this draft.
Mm-hmm.
He's 2 picks away from Mo Alley Cox,
yeah.
Who actually, let me tell you something. I've taken a lot of him in those Carson Wentz stacks I was talking about earlier. He's a great last round piece because he's always there. And he's the type of player. Last year, he had a couple, multi-touchdown games that just kind of come out of nowhere.
Their pass catching core is suddenly kind of shaky.
Yeah.
Ty way over the hill. Michael Pittman was someone that people were excited about last year. Injuries and just not a ton of production. Obviously, that was with Phillip Rivers, but that team's a tough one to figure out.
What do we think about KJ Hamler? If Rodgers shows up, that's like a random, gamble.
Even if Rodgers doesn't show up, we saw Teddy Bridgewater support 3 top 26 wide receivers last year, with him throwing to a running back lot. So I know they have Noah Fant there, and the Panthers didn't have a tight end to speak of last year, but I like Denver's weapons a lot. Cortland Sutton coming back. I think Jerry Jeudy's a lot better than people are giving him credit for, and I think Hamler and Tim Patrick are sneaky decent depth. I want pieces of the Denver offense this year. I think they're going to be a good team. I think they're going to be forced to be a good offense in a division that, I mean, with the Raiders defense, with the Chargers defense is better, but they've had a lot of question marks, and then with the offenses of the Chiefs and the Chargers, I think that could be the highest scoring division in football, or at least compete for it.
Yeah. And it's funny because the Denver pieces, they're all relatively inexpensive, but I don't have a ton of them this year. So I think I'm going to go with Hamler unless he randomly gets taken in the next 2 picks. I'd be surprised, but
I think I'm going to end up with a lot of Jerry Jeudy and a lot of Cortland Sutton this year.
The guy in front of us has 4 wide receivers. It's an interesting build. He right now has 7 running backs and 4 wide receivers.
Yeah, and I mean that's exactly what I talked about. I think people are just a lot of people are very unaware of roster construction, and when you get in these big tournaments, I mean we see it. People that play DFS know this very well, but when there's a lot of money to be won, there's a lot of dead money. So it's obviously really hard to win. Your expectation compared to a regular league is really low, but there's just a lot of people that are just going to be flushing money down the toilet, and understanding things like roster construction are going to give you a huge leg up on teams that are doing things like that other team before you. Sorry if you somehow catch this stream, Mr. 4 running back guy or 4 wide receiver guy. Sign up for 4.com.
All right, here we go. Here's our last pick, TJ. Do we want to go with an 8th receiver or a 6th running back?
I think you're probably looking like a 6 running back team, given how you started.
Okay.
And who we have.
Let's see. Who do we want here? I mean, Darrington Evans, I don't hate because really, I mean, he's right behind Henry. There's nobody else there, is there? Or am I missing someone in my brain?
No, he's a straight handcuff. I mean, I like Darrell Williams still in the Chiefs backfield, and I like Salvin.
Oh, we just got Traquan Smith. So oh well.
We forgot we were on a 30-second.
We did forget that, and we were chatting away, but that's all right. We have 8 wide receivers and 5 running backs, and I still like the team. I think we're going to be all right.
Yeah, we only have a couple of viewers left. We started with quite a few, but hopefully you guys saw the deposit ticker scrolling down the bottom, 4for4.co/underdog with promo code 4for4. That's through tomorrow. Deposit at least $10, get a $25 bonus from Underdog. This Best Ball Mania, it's probably going to take a long time to fill up. Greg Sauce, quick question before we bounce out. Thoughts on 2 versus 3 running backs? I think it just kind of comes down to draft capital, like we talked about before, and how your stacking rolls out. I don't think the advantage of just with 2 and loading up elsewhere. I don't think there's any data that supports that much better. It definitely has worked, but we just ran a data article today, and it shows it's kind of even between 2 and 3 running backs.
Let's just see how the end of this plays out here.
Yeah, we're going to be doing as many of these as possible. For those of you still viewing, and for those of you that catch it not live, we have quite a few best ball aficionados at 4for4, and we're going to be drafting a ton of best ball Mania teams now and throughout summer. So hopefully we'll get a ton of these streams in, and I think people will find a lot of really good value just us getting our best ball juices flowing. We're gonna have a lot of content coming out on the best ball Mania tournament specifically, and we'll be regurgitating that here. Just a couple more picks at the end, and Jen,
I think
I hope you win $1 million with this lineup.
Yeah, I think when it's done, let's just like go over real quick what we like, what we don't like.
Yeah, I mean, we could start going it over right now. I don't think we need to see the last 3 picks.
Well, I don't know how to. I mean, you just can't see it that well, but I guess we can. Yeah, I can scroll a little bit.
Oh yeah, it pops up to the big.
Yeah, we get a full
screen once it opens up. Yeah.
Okay, hold on a sec. Or maybe not.
That still gives us a pretty good look at it.
Yeah. Okay. So, yeah, like we said earlier, not the trio of quarterbacks that I would ever think that I would take coming into this draft, but as it unfolded, I kind of like it. I think that, like we've said a bunch of times on this broadcast, that in these big tournaments like this with lots of people, that you need to differentiate your team, and you need to do something different. And I think, by not having kind of a tried and true, we don't have a Brady, we don't have a, whatever. I think it's interesting that we're going with 2 rookies and then Ryan Fitzpatrick. I think that's interesting. I like it. And then, we've talked about stacks, and we didn't. Trevor Lawrence, we kind of ignored. He's naked. But the rest of them, Trey Lance, we have a bunch of different pieces. We have Mostert. We have Ayuk. And don't we have someone else? What am I?
Curtis Samuel and J.D. McKissick?
Yeah. No, yeah. But I San Francisco-wise, I thought for some reason we had more than that piece. But I guess
we doubled up. We doubled up tight end and running back with Seattle.
Oh, yeah. Okay. So, yeah, we got a couple different stacks. We had one mispick, which was Traquan Smith. We were going to try to get a running back there. But I think Traquan's still a good pick. I've been taking him. I think, with Sanders gone, I think he's got a role there. So I think that'll be nice. So, yeah. Overall, I think we, for our first Mania, I think we did all right. And hopefully we win $1 million.
Yeah, hopefully. I like it. I think one thing I learned from our mock yesterday in this draft is I'm probably going to be putting a pretty big emphasis on getting a top 8 quarterback. If we get word that Deshaun Watson is playing somehow, that'll turn into top 9. But this is a really good example of how a draft can turn out. We went wide receiver at a turn, and it makes you really zero in on strategies that you might not be comfortable with, but
but we got 2 really good ones at least
with in a tournament format. You're probably gonna hear that a lot, especially with Underdog promoting this tournament and so much money up top. A lot of people are gonna be saying in tournament format and best ball format. But it is just a different strategy, and hopefully we'll start to convey exactly what that means through our content, through these streams. But I'm excited. It's going to be a really, really fun season, and I will start getting some drafts under my belt, and we can watch me draft soon.
And then I can sit here and just talk away and let you sweat the picks.
Yep.
But no, you helped me. It wasn't like I picked the whole thing myself. You definitely.
I try.
Your influence was in these picks.
I try my best.
But I will say back to when you were talking about the starting off. I mean, we did start off with Adams Diggs. You can't really that's a beautiful start.
Yeah, it's top two receivers in the league.
Mm-hmm.
All right, Jen. Thank you for all of you that jumped on, and especially for you that stayed on. We don't have a hard schedule for these streams, but we'll definitely be promoting them as we see fit on Twitter. And I'm sure if you're signed up for the 444 newsletter, that you will get some info on there. Sign up for Underdog, 444.co/underdog, promo code 444. Sign up for 444 at 444.com. Jen, I will catch you later.
Sounds good. Bye, everybody.